Do you ever find yourself cutting back on sleep? Maybe for work, that big deadline.
Oh, yeah. Or a late night out you just don't want to miss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe just, scrolling endlessly online. It happens to pretty much everyone, I think.
It really does.
But what if maybe we're thinking about sleep the wrong way? Like, it's not just about hitting that magic 8-hour number.
Right. That's what's so interesting about the research we looked at.
Yeah, the sources for this deep dive, they really challenge that idea, don't they?
Yeah.
They show us that sleep isn't just, physical rest.
It's much deeper. It's about restoring, recharging, renewing ourselves.
Wow.
Physically, mentally.
And emotionally, too, right? Even spiritually, some sources suggest.
Exactly. Across all those levels.
So today, our goal is basically to pull out the really key stuff from these materials. Give you, the listener, a kind of shortcut to understanding sleep beyond just the surface level.
A more holistic view.
By the end of this, you'll hopefully get why sleep is just so critical for, everything.
Yeah.
How it works. It's magic on your body, your mind, your feelings.
And we'll touch on practical things too, like sleep hygiene, and how we even talk about sleep problems like insomnia.
Yeah, hopefully some real aha moments that make it all click.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If we think of sleep as more than just, ticking a box, but what's really going on, what jumped out at you from the research about what our bodies and minds are up to?
Well, the big theme is definitely restoration. Complete restoration. And the sources kind of break it down into three main areas. First up, the body.
Okay.
So when you're asleep, your body is actually super busy doing repair work. If you've, say, exercised, that's prime time for muscle repair and growth.
Right, the recovery phase.
Exactly. And if you're sick, your immune system goes into overdrive, doing repairs, building defenses. It's like a deep clean for your immunity.
Right.
And it's also when that rest and digest system, the parasympathetic nervous system, really takes charge. It shifts energy away from being alert and ready to react towards, digesting food properly, building energy stores for your cells, internal maintenance, basically.
Got it. So the body's hard at work. What about the mind?
The mind gets its recharge, too. Think of it like your phone battery, right? It gets drained all day. Sleep is when you plug it back in.
Good analogy.
Yeah, it's when we process all the information we took in, lock down memories, deciding what's important to keep.
Sorting things out.
Right, and working on problems, even dreaming, which seems really key for processing emotions and maybe even boosting creativity.
Fascinating. Okay, body, mind.
Yeah.
You mentioned emotions.
Absolutely. There's a direct link. You know that feeling when you've had a bad night's sleep? Little things annoy you more.
Oh, definitely. More irritable, shorter fuse.
Yeah. That's because sleep is crucial for regulating our emotions. It sort of resets the emotional palette, lets us handle things with a bit more balance. It helps build resilience.
Reset the emotional palette. I like that phrasing. It makes sense. That holistic restoration you mentioned.
Exactly. It ties into that deeper sense of feeling calm and centered, too.
It really is compelling when you think about all that work happening while we're just, lying there. And the scale of it. The sources point out we spend, minimally a third of our lives asleep?
Yeah. Minimally a third. It's huge.
That sheer amount of time really hammers home how vital it must be, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you think, are we really making the most of that third of our life?
Right. Which leads to the next question. If it's other important, how do we, do it well? The materials talk about something called sleep hygiene. What's that all about?
Sleep hygiene. Yeah, the sources explain it pretty clearly. It's basically the simple everyday habits that support good sleep.
Simple but important.
Exactly. They use the analogy of brushing your teeth for dental health. Sleep hygiene is the basic foundational stuff for your sleep health. It prevents problems down the line.
Okay, so what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, a big piece is being aware of how certain things, substances, habits, can mess with our sleep.
Right. Things we do without even thinking sometimes.
Totally. Like doom scrolling right before bed, or that soda you had with dinner, even a glass of wine at night. These things can really affect your ability to fall asleep and, crucially, stay asleep.
How so? What do they actually do?
They can interfere with your natural sleep cycle, your circadian rhythm, or mess with the different stages of sleep, what sleep scientists call sleep architecture. So you might fall asleep okay, but the quality of that sleep is compromised.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, so hygiene is key. But sometimes, even with good habits, things go wrong. We've all pulled all-nighters or stood up way too late.
Sure, for work or catching a game or, the latest album drop.
Exactly. But the sources make this really interesting distinction, one I hadn't really thought about much. The difference between just feeling sleepy and feeling fatigue.
Yes. This is super important, I think, because understanding the difference gives you clues about what your body and mind actually need to recover.
Okay, tell me more. Sleepy versus fatigue.
So, being sleepy, that's usually more straightforward. You feel drowsy, your eyes are heavy. It probably means you just need more sleep, maybe a nap or just getting to bed earlier tonight. It's often about acute sleep debt.
Okay, like a short-term thing.
Right. But fatigue, that's often deeper. It's more of a whole body exhaustion, sometimes mental fog too. It's that feeling of being completely drained where even a nap doesn't seem to touch it.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. And that often points to something more chronic, maybe a deeper imbalance or prolonged stress, not just a lack of hours last night.
That distinction feels really useful for figuring out what's actually going on.
It is, and it leads into how we even talk about sleep problems. The sources mention insomnia briefly, that common struggle with falling asleep or staying asleep consistently.
Right, which lots of people experience at some point.
Exactly. And they note that there are classification systems like the ICSD or the DSM-5 in the medical world used to categorize these kinds of issues more formally.
So it's not just I can't sleep. There are specific ways to understand what kind of trouble someone's having.
Precisely. It helps professionals figure out if it's insomnia or maybe sleep apnea or restless legs or something else and guide the right kind of help.
Okay. So sleep itself is obviously this huge critical piece for our well-being. But is it the only piece when it comes to rest and recovery? What else do the sources say contributes to that overall feeling of being restored?
That's a great point. While sleep is absolutely the foundation, the research definitely highlights other ways to get rest and restoration during the day.
Not necessarily replacing sleep, but supplementing it.
Exactly. Think of them as ways to top up your energy, balance out stress, kind of manage your body battery throughout the day, not just waiting for the big overnight charge.
Okay, interesting. What kind of practices are we talking about?
It's actually a really diverse list in the sources.
Wow.
Things like meditation, which calms the mind, restorative yoga, which is very gentle and focused on relaxation. Breathwork is another powerful one directly impacting your nervous system. Then there's yoga nidra, sometimes called yogic sleep.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Deep relaxation without actually sleeping.
Pretty much. And similar concepts like non-sleep deep rest or NSDR. Also, just spending time in nature bathing, and even simply taking a well-timed nap.
Wow. Okay, so lots of different tools in the toolkit for rest beyond just the nighttime hours.
Definitely. They all tap into that rest and restore state in different ways.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Summing up our deep dive today. It seems clear that sleep is, well, way more complex and important than just getting 8 hours.
Absolutely. It's fundamental for repairing the body, clearing the mind, balancing emotions, even connecting us more deeply with ourselves.
Right. And we've touched on the practical side, too, the basics of good sleep hygiene, like watching those late-night habits.
Mm-hmm. And that really key difference between just being sleepy and that deeper feeling of fatigue, understanding that can change how you approach recovery.
Totally. So, given that huge chunk of our lives, we spend asleep that third of our lives, and how crucial rest is for literally everything.
Yeah.
Here's something maybe for you, the listener, to think about.
Yeah.
What's one small thing you can maybe tweak today? Could it be adjusting one of those substance habits, like maybe swapping the late-night scroll for reading, or cutting out that evening soda?
Or maybe exploring one of those other rest practices we mentioned, a few minutes of breath work, maybe a short walk in nature.
Exactly. Something small to help balance out that body battery. And maybe just reflecting. How might understanding sleepy versus fatigue change the way you think about feeling tired and what you actually need?
It's definitely food for thought, how you approach your own energy and recovery.
For sure. Lots to consider about something we do every single night.